If you want to attract deeper connections in your life, one of the necessary components is going deeper inside of yourself. And the key is realizing that also we attract people into our life to reflect back the subconscious energy that also may have been normalized from earlier on in childhood. And until we process it, we continue to keep it active. Once we let that energy go, or we feel it and heal it, we then make room for the deeper connections. But to experience those deeper connections, another thing we can look at is, am I embodying the deeper aspects of myself? Which means the parts of you that you may normally hold back, because what if someone doesn't resonate with this esoteric side of myself? What if someone doesn't resonate with the vulnerable side of me? Well, guess what? That's okay. It's actually a good thing, because you repel away the people that don't resonate with that aspect of you, but you as a magnet also attract to you the people that resonate with that aspect of you. I was on a coaching call recently with someone, and he came on and he was talking about how he's a coach, and how even though he's an NLP coach that helps people basically remove subconscious patterns, there's times where he has trouble removing his own subconscious patterns. And I said something interesting to him. I said, well, you were just being vulnerable in front of like 500 people live on a coaching call I was doing. And everyone in the chat right now, if you feel more connected to him because he expressed that, put a 1. And it was like 1, a whole bunch of people. Because when you express certain aspects of yourself, there's a human aspect that becomes even more relatable. So a lot of times, the thing that we're afraid of sharing is the thing that we think is going to be what blocks intimacy or connection into our life. It's the very thing that actually magnetizes people to you. It's just that the fear there is that if I express it, then I'm not seen in a certain light. I think one thing I've done my best of doing since being on YouTube for 7 years is sharing the more vulnerable aspects of my life. But there are times it's challenging, because there's also a dynamic where there is a persona, I guess, like an image that's created of being a certain role, like teaching spiritual ideas, for example. And it's like, oh, if I talk about challenges I'm working through, then people may not resonate with it as much, or I might not be as credible. But even as I share that with you right now, you're probably like, oh, wow, Aaron's sharing something deeper. There's probably a part of you that's like more inspired by that versus like just being like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. I expect him to be perfect. I expect him to have all the answers and all the ideas. When that's also a form of projection. So understand that the process of really what this is all about is understanding that if you want to attract deeper connections in your life, you must embody that energy inside of yourself. And part of doing that means giving yourself permission and having courage to shift into vulnerability. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with you? If you have questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A section below, and I will answer some questions. But yeah, being vulnerable is a strength. Someone said, why do you need to magnetize people towards you? You don't need to. That's the thing with having magnetic energy as well. Having magnetic energy is really something that you do because it's who you are. I guess you could say that this is a phrase that I use because a lot of people want to become magnetic when, in fact, you being the most authentic version of you is magnetic. But if I title this thing, or if I start this live off with like how to be the most authentic version of you, people aren't subconsciously like, I really want to be the most authentic version of me. Some of you say, oh, I do, but you may not have listened as deep as you have. But if you say how to become a magnet to your desires, it gets people are like, I want to be magnetic, which is actually a good question to ask, because why do people want to be magnetic? Is it Is it because you just want to attract validation and approval? Or is it because you being magnetic means you're not chasing, which is a desperate energy? Like, why do you want to be magnetic? I've been going through my own transformation recently, even looking and almost judging the prior version of me making YouTube videos on the law of attraction, because I can see that a lot of times people that want to attract things into their life, it's almost like there's a certain desire for control in their life. Think about that. A lot of times people that also want to manifest and attract their dream life become a magnet. There's a fear around the unknown. There's a fear around stepping into the unknown and just trusting the universe, trusting God. So instead, it's like, well, if I can visualize what I want to experience and then experience it, I'm visualizing it, so I'm controlling my reality. And because I don't trust the universe or God or other people, I can at least trust that I visualize what I visualize and then I get what I experience. So manifestation becomes a way of controlling reality. And a lot of people that are into manifestation are people that are also people that are spiritual, that have been through trauma in the past, because that created pressure for that. But then it creates a certain amount of wanting control, to feel like there's a correlation between what I'm thinking and experiencing. So I think there's a higher level than just the law of attraction, and that's kind of what I've been exploring recently. And by higher level, I don't mean like better, but I mean the ego wants to control because the ego likes to stay in familiar patterns and it likes to know what's going on. There's more power that comes, though, when you surrender it to the divine and you just follow the frequency, you follow the energy. Does that make sense? You do something not because of what it gets you, but because you enjoy it. Surrendering to the unknown, exactly. It's funny, I was on my friend's podcast yesterday. It comes out on Tuesday, I believe. Friend Andre, he's got the Know Thyself podcast. And at the end of the podcast, we were talking about how complex some of these spiritual ideas can get and how simple it really is. Like, you could say right now, like, in the field right now is a parallel reality version of you, and you can connect to it. So let's get this spiritual idea that's just so mentally cool, and we can connect to it. Or you could relate to it like I was thinking like explaining spirituality to a caveman is what I was explaining to him. It's like if we were to sit down and just say what is actual like what we're teaching or talking about, it's like feel emotion. It's like simple words for a caveman, right? Feel emotion. What do you want? Visualize what you want, feel emotion. And you talk about meditation. Observe thoughts. Like if you were to do these 2 or 3 things, like your life would transform. Feel emotion as it comes up. Visualize what you want. Feel it as if here now. It is here now. Embody it now. Observe thoughts and patterns and beliefs. I am not my thoughts. I think thoughts. I am not thought. It's really that simple. But we like the spiritual ideas of all the cool spiritual ideas that we can get. Some people comment on my YouTube videos sometimes. They're like, you've talked about this. You've talked about letting go in multiple videos, Aaron. Come up with new concepts. It doesn't have to be complicated. We don't have to, I have 2,000 YouTube videos. Do you expect me to have 2,000 different spiritual concepts? That defeats the purpose. It defeats the point. The point is, it's extremely simple to transform. It's extremely simple. It's just we make it complicated because we want to analytically understand everything. And some people like that, though. Some people like the analytical side because it soothes them. The only time I really get analytical with things is when I'm more in survival mode and I use analyzing as a way of relieving anxiety, but it only increases anxiety. For example, when I run a live event, I just show up and the information comes through. Like I'm not, if I get nervous about it and I want to feel really prepped, I will come up with a whole bunch of bullet point list ideas of things I'm going to talk about, all of this stuff, and I'm out of control. I'm doing that. But then it actually hurts the process. The times I do best are the times I trust the flow. The times I get into a flow state and you see? So the key is being present to the moment. It's following the flow state, not needing to understand every little aspect that comes through. Someone said, do you remember what you say, or is it just like flowing? There are times I will make this right now, this live. I will leave when I'm done and I won't remember even what I talked about in the live to put it in the description box. Almost every time. I'm like, what did we even talk about? And it's hard for me to even remember. Why? Because I get into a flow state. Everyone has this ability right now. I'm not special. Everyone has this ability to get into a flow state. When you're in a flow state, time goes away. Why do you think so many women get pregnant after they adopted? Well, think about the vibration of this. Think about the vibration of, I want to have a kid. I want to have a kid. I want to have a kid. I want a kid. I want a kid. I want a kid, which means I lack a kid. I lack a kid. I lack a kid. And then this person may be with their husband and they may be like, okay, we're going to try to have a kid now. We're going to do it on the time of the full moon. And then it's going to increase the probability. We're going to do all of these things to have a kid. All this resistance is created. And then what happens is, they may eventually surrender. Maybe it's not going to happen. We've been trying for this amount of time and the kid hasn't come yet. So then they adopt. They let go of pressure, and then what happens is they're in the vibration of having a baby. They're in the vibration of adopting. And because they're in the vibration of having the baby, guess what happens? They then get pregnant. Someone was asking this question, by the way, and it is a phenomenon that happens where people try to have kids, they try to have kids, they try to have kids, they create resistance, they create resistance, they create resistance because they're trying to control a natural byproduct of something that just naturally happens. They adopt, they're in the vibration of having the kid, they get pregnant. Interesting, isn't that how that happens? Energetically, they have now aligned to the reality of them having a baby. I was on my friend Andre's podcast yesterday, and I told him a story about this person I used to work with, where for 2 years she was single. She would hardly ever get hit on by guys. She says that within 1 week of having a boyfriend, she will get hit on like 20 times in 1 week. She didn't get hit on 20 times in 2 years. But in 1 week, she got hit on 20 times. Why? Could she have just been in a different energy? Maybe in a way, then it's like, okay, now that she's in the relationship, she feels more magnetic and she's not desiring or needing it, so now it comes. Maybe same thing with the husband and wife that want to have a baby that are having trouble, then they adopt, and then they're in the vibration of that relief is gone and they're feeling so happy and in joy of having this new adopted baby that then she gets pregnant. Somebody asked the question because that is a phenomenon that happens. So how can you move from the vibration of chasing and wanting in the vibration of being? And one of the most powerful ways I've found to do it is to focus more on the process. Focus more on having fun. Focus more on enjoying the process. Now I could say, okay, I'm going to go live right now because if I go live, I'm going to create content and that's going to grow. So then that has become a means to an end instead of going live because it's fun. And the more fun I have, the more fun you have. The more fun someone else has or the more enjoyment they are of having that adopted baby, it's like then their body just relaxes and it's like, okay. Then they get pregnant. Isn't that interesting? Can you think of anything else? If you have any other examples of that, comment it below and we'll look at it. I find that interesting. How to embody all that you speak of. People must first learn it for themselves and learning it isn't simple. I think we can simplify to embody energy that you want to embody. I was thinking of this the other day. You think of, I just made a new section of this coaching program that I'm creating right now. I'm creating a 6-week coaching program. And in the F section, which stands for frequency, I was talking about Daniel Day-Lewis as an incredible actor. He is an actor that was in the movie There Will Be Blood. He was in the movie Gangs of New York. He's been in other movies as well. He's a method actor, which means that he gets into the role and he does a lot of research on the role and he literally becomes it. He's not acting. He's becoming the character. And what he did when he was in the movie Gangs of New York is he was a butcher. So he literally worked at a butcher place and would like sharpen knives with them to get into the vibration of it. He played in this movie where he was a boxer, and for an entire year he trained as a boxer. He literally got to the point to where he was an amateur boxer and he could compete at an amateur level. He would spar with people multiple times a day. In other movies, he played someone, I think it was called like My Left Foot or something. He played somebody that had cerebral palsy, is that what it's called, or Bell's palsy? And this person that couldn't walk. So what he did is for an entire year, he was in a wheelchair. And he was literally experiencing the same limitations as this person. And then even on set while he was an actor, he would make people carry him around because he was in character. So even in between takes, people were having to carry him around and they were getting frustrated because they had to carry him in a wheelchair and like help move around, but he was staying in character. Now the reason I say this is that's the lengths he would go to embody these character roles. A very powerful thing to research is the future version of you that's the more authentic version of you, so it's not acting. I'm not talking about faking it till you make it. I'm talking about literally embodying a more authentic aspect of you, but how does that version of you think? How does that version of you feel? How does that version of you act? What are the things that version of you is into? And then make a choice to be it. Like, have that level of dedication towards being the most authentic version of you. I did that to become a YouTuber. Started making videos every day. I started writing down video ideas that I had throughout the day. I started focusing on thumbnails. I focused on editing. I had to learn how to edit. I started to literally merge and to be a YouTuber even when I had a 9-to-5 job selling women's shoes. Within 6 months, my whole entire life transformed because I was being like Daniel Day-Lewis before I even studied this stuff, but I started to be that for myself. But it's not faking it. It's more, what if so far in your life we've been thinking, feeling, acting equal to a limited identity of just who we've been in the past? That's familiar. And what if you could be the most authentic version of you, meant getting into the unknown, which is scary, but getting into the unknown is where all the magic happens. It felt kind of fake in the beginning of me making videos. Who am I to be making YouTube videos? What are people going to think when they see these videos? What about family and friends? And I'm talking about esoteric concepts. I had to push through that. So the point is, it will feel fake just because it's unfamiliar. The key is be aware of why you want what you want. Understanding that if it's money, if you're focused on money, that's a side effect. Money is a side effect of passion. Focus on your passion. Because even if you had all that money, the money's not what brings you happiness. It's the freedom to be in your passion that brings you happiness. That's a good question. Psycho-cybernetics versus letting go. Which book should I apply first? Which one serves more? Some of my favorite books of all time, Psycho-Cybernetics and Letting Go by David Hawkins. Psycho-Cybernetics is by Maxwell Maltz, I believe. One's about your inner self-image and how that controls your life. The other is about the power of letting go to elevate your vibration. I would say trust your intuition with that. Trust your intuition of which one you feel more called to. I think Letting Go is a good first book for many people to read. And they're cornerstone books of all my teachings, I would say, is Letting Go by David Hawkins and Psycho-Cybernetics. Your internal self-image of who you are, questioning it, healing. Those are some of my favorite books, though. Yeah, I changed my self-image when I worked my 9-to-5 sales job to start selling more. And then I used it in 2017 to become a full-time YouTuber. It does work. Any advice on releasing trapped emotions, please? The most powerful way I found it release trapped emotions is through going through a breathwork ceremony. I have a free breathwork ceremony that's an hour and a half long, comes music, it's like music, and I'm certified in a specific process. If you type in Vibe 101, or you type in Breathwork 101, comment Breathwork 101 and it'll be DM'd to you. Breathwork 101, all one word. And then feeling it and healing it is powerful versus going beyond the surface level. It's a good question. How can one date with intention but without controlling outcomes? So if you're going on a date or if you're dating someone, what you want to focus on is your own energy of how you're showing up, and become aware of your internal process when you're around this person or you're around dating in general. When you go on a date, if you're going on the date and you're asking yourself the question, how can I get this person to like me? That is an energy of subconscious manipulation, and also it's seeking something. It's seeking the validation and approval. Instead, you want to ask yourself the question, do I have things in common with this person? Do we have shared values? Am I attracted to this person? You want to ask yourself those questions. It brings about a different energy. You want to focus on just having fun on the dates, having fun on learning more about yourself, enjoying the process, not focusing on the outcome. So controlling outcome is because you're trying to get something out of it. What are you trying to get out of it? You're like, well, I'm trying to get a partner out of it. I'm trying to get somebody that resonates with me. When really, the process of dating is also a process of self-inquiry. It's a process of you becoming aware of your limiting beliefs. You become aware of what you like and don't like in a partner. Becoming aware of what are red flags, and if you see the red flags. Becoming aware of what characteristics you're really attracted to. And where there's alignment and synergy. So you date with intention, with understanding what is your intention with even going out and putting yourself out there. Are there opportunities for you to be more vulnerable? For you to express how you really feel? For you to express the parts of yourself you might hold back because you're afraid of rejection? Like, that's when it can become also a process of you falling more in love with yourself. So living according to your own values. So it's really, though, the biggest advice I can give is to focus more on the process than the end result. On having fun, enjoying it, asking yourself the question. It's a different frame if you go on a date and you're like trying to control the outcome versus you go on a date just to have fun and to become aware of these different aspects of yourself and how you can also vibe with someone else and connect with someone else. And where are your opportunities for breaking through? Of where maybe it's a comfort zone to kind of stay on the surface. Remember, you meet people in a deeper connection when you show the deeper aspects of yourself. So giving yourself permission for that will allow yourself to bring that in. What's your definition of a controlling person? How can we identify that we are being manipulated? Well, one thing to become aware of if you want to identify if you're being manipulated is, do you feel like there's a certain way you should be, and is there guilt if you don't act a specific way, or you're not doing what someone else wants you to do? Now, the guilt, you may say they're controlling me. The guilt is you controlling you, which is kind of an interesting way to look at it. So the idea of a controlling person is, you see, a lot of, like, how deep do we want to go with this? One powerful thing to become aware of is this triangle that's called the drama triangle. Any of you heard of the drama triangle? The drama triangle is that there is a perpetrator, or the villain. There is the victim, the person that's receiving that's kind of powerless, and then there's the rescuer, the person that's rescuing the victim. And what happens a lot of times is when we talk about a controlling person, it's people that are like, there was a villain in my life back in the day that was a controlling person. And that villain that was a controlling person is something that I don't want to experience. So how do I get them out of my life? One thing to become aware of, though, is that a lot of times there's a story there that's how people are. People are controlling. So there's a label, they're a controlling person. Really, everyone's trying in different ways to get their needs met. Even the empath, that sometimes could be the victim or the rescuer, who says that person's controlling, that person's the narcissist, they still have aspects where what they do to get their needs met is, in a certain way, they overgive sometimes, or they try to rescue other people because they can feel so deeply, but they end up enabling other people that stay in victim mode. And they end up saying, you're the meanie, you're the controlling person, which keeps that person the villain. Really, to escape the drama triangle, which is representative of codependency, has to do with getting in co-regulation. And one thing you want to become aware of is the labels. And are we stuck in a story that's that person's the meanie bad guy or bad person in the past? And if that perspective is there, you're probably recreating it in your life now somehow. So you want to be aware of how we project these roles onto other people. So definition of a controlling person, I guess, would be somebody that has expectations and conditions as to how you have to be in order to be good, in order to get their validation or approval. But ultimately, the reason I am putting the energy back on you is because in what ways do you maybe control? Maybe by giving. If I give, if I help someone else, then I feel worthy. Then I feel like this person will never leave me because I'm rescuing them. But you end up keeping them enabled in a specific pattern. So one of the things to become aware of is, where am I controlling my own life? Where do I have conditions in my own life as to how I have to be, or how do other people have to be? In a way, saying that person should not be controlling, that's controlling. Think about that. In a specific way, you're saying someone else is controlling me. That's not fair. They're the perpetrator. I'm the victim or the rescuer. But you're controlling them by having a condition onto them. Now, you can still have a boundary where you say, I'm not going to continue to experience this energy, but there's no need to project that onto them of how they should or shouldn't be. Take away those conditions and then just decide, what energy do you vibe with? See? What energy do you vibe with? Technically, a lot of people that are afraid of controlling people have a lot of systems of control in their life, whether they're controlling how people perceive of them, whether they're controlling and having a story that this person's controlling, trying to control the outcome of things by modifying how they're showing up in the world. You see the difference there? That still becomes a fear of being manipulated, still becomes a manipulative tactic to get your own needs met. So it becomes a projection in certain ways. So a very powerful thing to do is to release that energy and to take responsibility of it within your own energy field, not have conditions of what and how people have to be, and forcing them to change. It's like letting them go through their own things. Like if you're rescuing someone else, you're trying to get them to learn the lesson, you're robbing them of their own lesson. And you're also infusing that they're a victim, enabling them. Same with the controller of the villain or the perpetrator. You can still draw boundaries and choose what energy you engage with. I'm just saying that when people start trying to overlap between this triangle, that's where things become a challenge. Does that make sense? Someone says they have health anxiety. Do I attract bad health? One thing you want to become aware of is the beliefs you have, and the funny thing about emotion is if you let yourself feel the emotion without trying to control it, you allow yourself to feel it a lot of times and you're present with it, the energy then has an outlet to dissipate. So you'll find that one of the best ways to shift your emotion is to allow yourself to feel it. It's that we resist and we say, I shouldn't be feeling anxiety, I shouldn't be feeling this. A lot of times anxiety also, I think, is excitement being filtered through a negative definition. I really enjoyed the movie Inside Out 2, which is all about anxiety. As a teenager, in the first Inside Out movie, which are basically characters with the different emotions inside of someone, inside this little girl. And in the second one, anxiety gets introduced because she becomes a teenager. And then anxiety starts running everything, and the thing is when you suppress certain emotions, it stays under the surface, but if you just kind of let it be there, not that you have to let it run your life, but if you just let it be there and you observe it, you're then in a different state. You can see you might be having anxious thoughts, but you don't have to believe them. You don't have to buy into it. But yeah, that's a great movie, though. I like that. Yeah, I wish when I was younger I would have watched those. They didn't come out until I was an adult. I'm like, these are genius movies that really show you a lot about emotional intelligence. That's a good question. Someone says, being a somewhat public persona, people want my time, yet the 4 people closest to me can barely spare 2 minutes. Is it me, or how do I change this dynamic? Yeah, I wonder what do you think that's reflecting back to you? Or what are the emotions that are being felt when you think of that? When you think of like there are people around you that don't have time for you. That's where it sounds like the pain is, right? There are people around you that don't have time for you. And that feels painful. And what I would look at is there a familiar story that's on autopilot that maybe mom or dad or in childhood it was normal to have people around you that were close to you, but they just didn't have time for you. And maybe there's a little girl part of yourself that you could begin to spend time with. And as you begin spending time with, you start to feel differently. And then maybe that changes on the outside, but it might just be a reflection that there's a part of yourself that misses that energy. So of course, and also, can you be vulnerable? Like, is maybe there an opportunity here for you to be vulnerable with this person, for these people? Like, listen, guys, I don't know if you want to say it like that. I'm a somewhat public persona. People want my time. And you 4 people that are closest to me, but you could barely spend 2 minutes. People want my time, but you can only spend 2 minutes with me. What I'd recommend is looking at that energy and maybe being vulnerable. Like, is there a fear that if you express your emotions, they're going to get mad at you or something? Or do you feel like worthy of expressing that? That could be a breakthrough. Could be a breakthrough to drop a story that maybe people don't have time for you. You know what I mean? I know, I was just joking about that last part I said. But do you see what I mean? So it's your mom, your dad, and your 2 best friends. Well, maybe open the floor to be vulnerable with them. What is the fear? If you're vulnerable, yeah, I hear you. You know, sometimes it's easy for people to receive attention and energy from strangers, but maybe when it comes to intimacy and intimate connections, maybe there's more fear there. And part of that intimacy and vulnerability, though, is also being able to express yourself. So I'd recommend that you express that. Express that to them. It sounds like it's your actual family members, so it's like that's something, hopefully there's a safe space. And if not, then maybe that's something you could open up. Yeah, that fear that's there is trying to keep you in familiar territory, keep you from showing up. Sometimes you might express that. Like I remember one time I was desiring, this was an interesting kind of like story from a few years ago when I was growing on YouTube, and I remember like talking to my dad, and there was like a desire that I had for my dad to be interested in what I was doing. And I remember this is a few years ago, and I noticed that every time I would talk to my dad, we would talk about certain things, but it was like he didn't understand the YouTube world. He didn't understand like kind of what I was doing, even though I was successful. So we'd get on the phone, and sometimes we'd talk about certain things, but there was like a part of me that wanted him to ask about me and what I was doing. And then what I eventually did is I just kind of let that go. And then what I did is when I would talk to my dad, I would ask him about how he was doing. I would just be genuinely curious into him and how work was going for him and things like that. And what was interesting is as I shifted that energy and I started to give that which I wanted to receive, and I wasn't doing it to get it. I wasn't like, I want my dad to ask me and to be proud of me and to ask me like, you know, what I'm up to. I just started being interested in other people. I started being interested in him. And I call him back, so how's it going? So how's work? Even though there was a part of me too where I realized I grew up with my dad being a fire investigator, a firefighter, and there was a part of me that's like knew I didn't want to be a firefighter. I wanted to do what I do now. And I think there's a part of me that just maybe wasn't as, I grew up with him, so I kind of know how his job is. So I'm like, I'd never ask. But what I could tell is that as I started being interested in my dad, interestingly enough, then I started talking to my dad on the phone. He was interested. He's like, so what are you up to? What are you doing? How's work? How's business? I'm like, what? It was right after I shifted the energy and I started being interested in what he was doing. So sometimes leading with vulnerability or leading with these kind of things is a way of allowing other people to open up, but you're doing it for you. So when you're asking the question right now, it's not you're going to start asking your parents questions and you're going to start like opening up to them so that they open up. You're going to do it because it's how you choose to live. And as you choose to live in that vulnerable way, either they're going to resonate with that and mirror that back to you, or you're going to find other people that you also feel connected to, that you feel intimate to. Does that make sense? So it was interesting. When I was with my dad, as I started being interested in him and asking him questions, then it was that interest started to get reflected. People are reflecting back to us the energy that we're embodying. But you're doing it not because of not trying to manipulate reality or manipulate other people. You're doing it because it's the values you choose to live by. Do you see the difference there? Does that resonate with you guys? You guys hearing that? It's all a reflection, exactly. So anyways, I have that podcast that'll be out next Tuesday. I'll post it here when it's live. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't joined High Vibe Tribe yet, it's free. There's a $1,000 course in there for free. You just type in Vibe 101. There's also breathwork in there for free. And other than that, I think that's it for today. I'm going to go eat, go to the gym. I got people coming to clean up the house soon, which will be nice. And other than that, hope you guys all have a great day. As always, peace, much love, and namaste.